The queen lost her daughter to battle, then a human brought her home. The news arrived at midnight when the twin moons of Alvar Prime hung low in the purple sky. Queen Mirai sat in her private chambers, reviewing trade agreements that suddenly meant nothing at all. The messenger, a young officer whose hands trembled as he held the datapad, could barely speak the words. Princess Hana's convoy had been destroyed. The flagship was gone. No survivors had been found. The datapad slipped from Mirai's fingers and clattered against the crystalline floor. The sound echoed through the vast chamber, sharp and final, like the breaking of something precious that could never be repaired. For a long moment, the queen simply stared at the officer, waiting for him to tell her this was a mistake, a cruel joke, anything but the truth. But the officer only bowed his head, his silence confirming what she already knew in her heart. Hana was gone. The Alvaran Empire stretched across 3 star systems, home to billions of citizens who had lived in peace for over 2 centuries. Their technology was advanced beyond measure. Their ships could cross vast distances in mere days. Their weapons could destroy entire moons if needed. They were proud, ancient, and powerful, and yet they could not save one young woman from the darkness of space. Queen Mirai rose from her seat, her ceremonial robes flowing around her like water. She walked to the massive window that overlooked the capital city, where millions of lights twinkled in the night. Soon all those lights would dim in mourning. Soon her people would know that their beloved princess was dead, but not yet. Not until she saw the evidence with her own eyes. The military command center was a hive of desperate activity when the queen arrived. Admirals and generals stood around holographic displays showing the last known position of Hana's convoy. The wreckage had been found drifting in the outer reach, a dangerous sector of space near the border with Kreth territory. Admiral Hyunwoo, the commander of the royal fleet, stepped forward. His face was drawn with exhaustion and grief. He had served the royal family for 40 years, and he had watched Princess Hana grow from a small child into a capable young leader. Now he had to tell her mother that he had failed. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice rough, "we found the flagship 3 hours ago. The damage is extensive. Kreth weapon signatures are all over the debris field. They hit the convoy hard and fast, likely from multiple angles. The escort ships tried to defend her, but they were overwhelmed." Mirai studied the holographic display, her eyes tracing the scattered pieces of what had once been her daughter's ship. "Show me the escape pods." Hyunwoo's expression grew even more grim. "We found 7 pods. All empty. Either they were never used or the Kreth took the survivors," Mirai finished, her hands clenched at her sides. The Kreth were a savage species, pirates and raiders who attacked merchant vessels and small colonies. They took no prisoners and left no witnesses. If they had captured Hana, she would not have survived long. "We've sent search teams to scan every piece of debris," Hyunwoo continued. "We're checking nearby asteroid fields and abandoned stations. But Your Majesty, it's been 3 weeks. If anyone survived the initial attack," he didn't need to finish the sentence. 3 weeks without rescue in the cold vacuum of space meant certain death. Mirai turned away from the display. "Continue searching. I want every ship we have looking for her. I want every piece of wreckage examined. I want answers." "Yes, Your Majesty." But as the days passed, no answers came. The search teams found nothing but more debris, more evidence of the brutal attack, and more reasons to give up hope. The royal advisors gently suggested that it was time to accept reality. Princess Hana was gone, and the empire needed to move forward. A funeral was planned. The palace was draped in silver mourning cloth. Citizens gathered in the streets to light candles and share memories of their princess. Hana had been loved by her people, known for her kindness and her desire to bridge the gap between the Alvaran Empire and the younger species of the galaxy. She had been on that convoy to meet with representatives from 3 different worlds, hoping to establish new trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Now she was just another casualty of the violence that plagued the outer reach. But Queen Mirai refused to attend the funeral. She stood in her chambers, staring at a holographic image of her daughter, and whispered, "You're still alive. I know you are." Her advisors thought she was in denial. Her generals thought she was letting grief cloud her judgment. But Mirai had learned long ago to trust her instincts, and every instinct she had screamed that Hana was not dead. Somewhere out there in the vast darkness between the stars, her daughter was waiting to be found. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, A small salvage ship drifted through an asteroid field in the forgotten edges of the galaxy. The ship was called the Wandering Star, and it was owned by a human named Jiwan, who made his living by finding valuable scrap and helping stranded travelers. Jiwan sat in the pilot's seat, his feet propped up on the console as he sipped terrible coffee from a dented metal cup. His ship was small and old, patched together with spare parts and held together by sheer determination. The crew consisted of just 3 people, and they spent most of their time arguing about where to search for salvage next. "There's nothing out here," complained Yunji, the ship's medical officer and engineer. She was studying a star chart with a frown on her face. "We've been scanning this sector for 2 days and haven't found anything worth taking." "Patience," Jiwan replied. "The best finds are always in the places nobody else wants to look. The best finds are in places where people actually throw things away," Yunji muttered. "Not in the middle of nowhere," Jiwan grinned. He liked Yunji's bluntness. She had been with him since the beginning, when he first bought this old ship and decided to leave his military career behind. They had been through dangerous situations together, survived pirate attacks and equipment failures, and somehow always managed to come out ahead. The third crew member, a quiet man named Minho who handled navigation and communications, suddenly sat up straight in his chair. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal." Jiwan's feet came down from the console. "What kind of signal?" "Distress beacon. Very faint, almost dead. It's coming from deeper in the asteroid field." Yunji shook her head. "Could be a trap. Pirates use fake distress signals to lure in salvage ships." "Could be," Jiwan agreed. "But it could also be someone who needs help." He set down his coffee cup and reached for the controls. The Wandering Star's engines hummed to life, and the small ship began to navigate through the dense field of spinning rocks. Jiwan's hands moved over the controls with practiced ease, dodging asteroids that would have crushed the ship if they made contact. "Signal's getting stronger," Minho reported. "I think I see something." "There, at coordinates 77 Mark III, Jiwan adjusted their course and soon they spotted it. A small escape pod wedged between 2 large asteroids. The pod was battered and scarred, its surface marked by weapons fire and collision damage. One of its engine nacelles was completely gone and the other hung by a few melted cables. "That thing looks like it's been through hell," Yunji observed. "Can you scan for life signs?" Yunji worked the sensor controls, then nodded slowly. "I'm reading 1 life sign. Very weak. Whoever's in there isn't doing well." Jiwan didn't hesitate. "Get the docking clamps ready. We're bringing that pod in." "Captain, we don't know who's in there. This could be dangerous. Someone needs help," Jiwan said simply. "That's all I need to know." The Wandering Star maneuvered close to the damaged pod and Minho activated the magnetic clamps. With a solid thunk, the pod attached to their airlock. Jiwan grabbed a medical kit and made his way to the airlock, with Yunji right behind him carrying more equipment. The pod's hatch was damaged and wouldn't open properly. Jiwan had to use a cutting torch to force it, and when it finally gave way, a wave of stale air rushed out. The interior of the pod was dark and cold. 2 bodies lay inside. One was clearly dead, a tall figure in what looked like military armor. The other was curled in the corner, barely breathing, wearing a tattered uniform that bore insignia Jiwan didn't recognize. "She's alive," Yunji said, already scanning the survivor with her medical tricorder. "Barely. Radiation exposure, dehydration, multiple injuries. We need to get her to the medbay now." Jiwan carefully lifted the woman into his arms. She was light. Too light, and her skin felt cold even through his gloves. As he carried her to the medical bay, he noticed something on her collar. A small emblem that looked like it might be important. But that could wait. Right now, all that mattered was keeping this stranger alive. The Queen lost her daughter to battle. Then a human brought her home. The medical bay of the Wandering Star was not designed for serious emergencies. It was a small room with 1 bed, a few cabinets of supplies and equipment that Yunji had modified over the years to work better than it should. But it was not a hospital, and the woman lying on the bed needed a hospital. Yunji worked quickly, her hands steady despite the pressure. She attached monitors to the woman's chest and forehead, watching as weak vital signs appeared on the screen. The readings made her frown. "Her biology is different from ours," Yunji said, studying the data. "Not human. I think she might be Alvarin, but I've never treated one before." Jiwan stood near the door, staying out of the way but ready to help if needed. "Can you save her?" "I don't know. Her body is shutting down from radiation exposure. She needs medicine I don't have and treatments I can't give her here. Yunji paused, then looked at Jiwon with determination in her eyes. But I'm going to try anyway. For the next 6 hours, Yunji fought to keep the stranger alive. She used human medical techniques and adapted them as best she could. She gave the woman fluids to fight the dehydration, medicines to slow the radiation damage, and stimulants to keep her heart beating. Jiwon brought warm blankets, helped adjust the monitors, and watched as Yunji refused to give up. Finally, around dawn, according to the ship's clock, the woman's vital signs began to stabilize. Her breathing became more regular. Her temperature started to rise toward normal levels. She was still in critical condition, but she was no longer dying. Yunji collapsed into a chair, exhausted. She's going to make it. Maybe. If we can get her to real medical care soon. Jiwon nodded and placed a hand on Yunji's shoulder. You did good work. I did desperate work, Yunji corrected. But it's holding for now. Jiwon looked at the sleeping woman. She appeared young, perhaps in her mid-20s, with pale blue skin and dark hair that fell across the pillow. Her features were delicate but strong and even unconscious and injured. There was something noble about her face. Did you check her uniform? Jiwon asked. Not yet. I was too busy keeping her alive. Together they examined the woman's tattered uniform more carefully. The fabric was high quality, much better than standard military issue. The insignia on her collar was indeed significant. It showed a crown surrounded by 3 stars, worked in gold thread that still gleamed despite the damage. Minho, who had been monitoring the situation from the bridge, came down to look. He studied the insignia for a moment, then pulled out his datapad and started searching through databases. That's the royal seal of the Alvaran Empire, Minho said quietly. I think we just rescued someone very important. Jiwon raised his eyebrows. How important? This level of insignia? Could be a high-ranking military officer. Could be a noble. Could be... Minho trailed off, his eyes widening as he read something on his datapad. Captain, there's a news report here. Princess Hana of the Alvaran Empire went missing 3 weeks ago. Her convoy was attacked in the Outer Reach. They've been searching for her ever since. The 3 of them looked at the woman lying on the medical bed. So we just found a princess, Yunji said slowly. A princess that an entire empire has been looking for. Jiwon nodded, processing this information. The Alvaran Empire was one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They were advanced, proud, and not particularly friendly toward humans. Humanity had only made contact with alien species 80 years ago, and many of the older civilizations still treated humans like primitive newcomers who didn't belong in galactic affairs. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that a woman needed help, and she needed to get home. Minho, pull up the coordinates for Alvar Prime, Jiwon said. Yunji looked at him in surprise. You're going to take her all the way to Alvar Prime. That's 3 sectors away, through dangerous space. The Kreth Raiders are still active in this area, and our ship isn't built for combat. Would you rather leave her here? No, but we could send a message to the Alvaran military. Let them come get her. Jiwon shook his head. Look at her condition. She needs medical care now. Not in 2 weeks when a rescue fleet can get organized and find us. We have her. We can move fast and stay hidden. We bring her home ourselves. This is crazy, Yunji said. But there was no real protest in her voice. She had known Jiwon long enough to understand that once he made this kind of decision, nothing would change his mind. Minho pulled up a star chart showing the route to Alvar Prime. It's going to take us at least 8 days, maybe 10. We'll have to go through 3 sectors, and 2 of them are known for pirate activity. Then we'll be careful, Jiwon said. Chart us the safest course you can find. As Minho worked on navigation, the woman on the medical bed began to stir. Her eyes moved beneath her closed eyelids, and she made a soft sound of pain. Yunji immediately checked her monitors, but the vital signs remained stable. Then the woman's eyes opened. They were a striking violet color, bright even in the dim light of the medical bay. She looked around in confusion, trying to understand where she was. Easy, Yunji said gently. You're safe. You're on a ship called the Wandering Star. We found your escape pod and brought you here. The woman tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. She coughed, and Yunji quickly brought her some water. After a few sips, she tried again. Where am I? You're in the Outer Reach, Jiwon said, stepping closer so she could see him. We found you drifting in an asteroid field. You were in pretty bad shape. The woman's eyes focused on Jiwan, taking in his appearance. Her expression showed surprise. You're human. That's right, but humans don't come to this sector. It's too dangerous, Jiwan smiled. We don't really pay attention to what we're supposed to do. The woman tried to sit up, but pain made her gasp and fall back against the pillow. Yoonji gently pushed her down. Don't move. You've been hurt badly. You need to rest. My guard, Taemin, where is he? Jiwan's expression grew somber. I'm sorry. He didn't make it. We found him with you in the pod. Tears filled the woman's violet eyes. He saved me. When the Kreth attacked our convoy, he got me to the escape pod. He stayed behind to hold them off so I could launch. He died so I could live. He was brave, Jiwan said quietly. The woman closed her eyes, tears running down her cheeks. For a moment, she grieved for the man who had given his life for hers. Then she took a shaky breath and opened her eyes again. I need to contact my mother. She needs to know I'm alive. We'll get you home, Jiwan promised. We're already on our way to Alvar Prime. The woman looked at him in surprise. You're taking me all the way to Alvar Prime? But that's days away through dangerous territory. It's where you need to go. Why would you do this? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything, Jiwan shrugged. You needed help. That's reason enough. The woman studied his face as if trying to understand this strange human who would risk his life and his ship for a complete stranger. In Alvaran society, everything had a price. Every favor required payment. Every action had a calculated purpose. The idea that someone would help purely out of kindness was almost incomprehensible. What's your name? She asked. Jiwan. I'm the captain of this ship. That's Unji, our medical officer, and Minho handles navigation. My name is Hana, the woman said. Then, with visible effort, she added, Princess Hana of the Alvaran Empire. Jiwan nodded. We figured that out from your uniform. But princess or not, right now you're just someone who needs help. So rest. Let Yoonji take care of you. We'll get you home safe. Hana looked at him for a long moment, then nodded and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep again, her body desperately needing rest to heal. Jiwan left the medical bay and returned to the bridge. Minho had already plotted their course, a winding route through less traveled space that would hopefully keep them away from pirate ships. Course is set, Minho reported. But Captain, you should know that our sensors picked up 2 Kreth scout ships in the neighboring sector. They're probably still looking for survivors from the convoy attack. Then we stay quiet and stay hidden, Jiwan said. Run silent protocols, minimal engine output. We ghost our way through. Yoonji joined them on the bridge looking worried. She's stable for now, but she needs real medical care. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, Jiwan said with more confidence than he felt. We've gotten through worse situations than this. Have we, though? Yoonji asked. We've never had a princess on board. We've never been the only thing standing between royalty and death, Jiwan smiled. Then I guess this will be a new experience for all of us. The wandering star slipped quietly through space, a small human ship on an impossible mission. Inside, a princess slept and dreamed of home. And on the bridge, 3 humans who had no business being heroes prepared to face whatever dangers lay ahead. Because that's what humans did. They saw someone in trouble and they helped. No matter the cost, no matter the risk. They simply did what was right. The queen lost her daughter to battle. Then a human brought her home. The first 3 days of the journey passed without incident. The wandering star drifted through space on minimal power, avoiding the main shipping lanes where pirates might be hunting. Jiwan kept the ship dark and quiet, running what he called ghost protocols, techniques he had learned during his time in the Earth Defense Force. Princess Hana spent most of those first days sleeping. Her body was healing slowly, fighting against the radiation damage and injuries from the attack. Yoonji checked on her every few hours, adjusting medicines and monitoring her progress. The princess was stronger than she looked, and her body responded well to the human medical treatments. On the 4th day, Hana was strong enough to leave the medical bay. She moved slowly, leaning against the wall for support, but she insisted on walking. Yoonji stayed close, ready to catch her if she fell. Jiwan found her standing in the small common area, looking out the viewport at the stars rushing past. She was wearing one of Unji's spare jumpsuits, since her own uniform had been too damaged to repair. You should be resting, Jiwan said. Hana turned to look at him. Her violet eyes were clearer now, more alert. I've been resting for 3 days. I needed to see where I am, to remember that I'm not still trapped in that escape pod. Jiwan nodded, understanding. He had been in combat situations where the psychological damage lasted longer than the physical wounds. We're making good progress. Another 5 or 6 days, and we'll reach Alvar in space. You're risking a lot for me. Your ship, your crew, your lives. It's what we do. Hana shook her head slowly. No. Most species would have sent a message and waited for payment before taking action. Some would have demanded money up front. A few might have sold me to the highest bidder. But you found me, and immediately decided to help. You didn't ask for payment. You didn't negotiate terms, you just acted. Is that so unusual? For my people? Yes. Hana looked back out at the stars. The Alvaran Empire is old. We have centuries of tradition, layers of protocol, rules for every interaction. We have forgotten what it means to simply help someone because they need help. Everything has become about maintaining position, following proper procedures, protecting our status. Sounds exhausting, Jiwan said. Hana laughed, a sound that held equal parts amusement and sadness. It is. I've spent my whole life learning those rules, following those protocols. And then I end up floating in space, waiting to die, and it's a human who saves me, a species we consider primitive and reckless. We are pretty reckless, Jiwan admitted with a grin. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Then Minho's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we have a problem. Jiwan's relaxed posture vanished instantly. He was at the bridge in seconds, with Hana moving as quickly as she could behind him. Minho pointed at the sensor display. 2 Kreth scout ships coming in fast from our port side. They must have picked up our engine signature. Jiwan studied the display, calculating distances and speeds in his head. Can we outrun them? Not if we want to keep the engines from burning out. And if we run at full power, we'll light up every sensor in 3 sectors. The Kreth ships were closing in. They were faster than the Wandering Star and better armed. In a straight fight, Jiwan's small salvage ship wouldn't stand a chance. They're hailing us, Minho said. Don't answer. Yunji, get to the engine room and give me everything you can without blowing us up. Yunji was already moving. On it. Hana grabbed the back of Jiwan's chair to steady herself. If they catch us, they'll kill us all. The Kreth don't take prisoners. Then we won't let them catch us. Jiwan's hands moved over the controls, and the Wandering Star suddenly veered off course, diving toward a nearby debris field. The field was filled with rocks, broken ships, and other dangerous objects floating in space. Most pilots would avoid it, but Jiwan had never been like most pilots. Are you crazy? Minho shouted as they plunged into the debris field. We'll get torn apart. So will they if they follow us. The Wandering Star weaved between chunks of metal and stone, with Jiwan making split-second decisions about which way to turn. Behind them, the 2 Kreth ships entered the field, their weapons firing. Energy blasts lit up the darkness, missing the human ship by meters. Jiwan spotted a large piece of wreckage ahead, the remains of an old cargo hauler. He aimed straight for it, waiting until the last possible second before veering around it. The Kreth ships flying in formation couldn't split up fast enough. One of them clipped the wreckage and spun out of control, slamming into an asteroid. One down, Jiwan muttered. But the second Kreth ship was still on their tail, and it was getting closer. Energy blast came faster now, and one of them grazed the Wandering Star's rear shield. The ship shuddered from the impact. Shields at 40%, Minho reported. Jiwan saw his opportunity, a narrow gap between 2 large asteroids, barely wide enough for his ship. He aimed for it without hesitation. We're not going to fit, Minho yelled. Yes, we are. Hold on. The Wandering Star scraped through the gap, metal grinding against rock on both sides. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, but they made it through. The Kreth ship, larger and less maneuverable, tried to follow and got wedged between the asteroids. They heard the sound of metal tearing even through the vacuum of space. Jiwan didn't slow down. He kept pushing the ship forward, weaving through the debris field until they finally emerged on the other side. Only then did he reduce speed and check their status. Shields at 20%, hull integrity at 75%, engine efficiency down to 82%, but we're alive. Yunji's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. What did you do to my beautiful engines? Saved our lives? You better have. These things are held together with hope and duct tape as it is. Hana was staring at Ji-won with wide eyes. That was incredible. I've never seen anyone fly like that. Ji-won shrugged. You learn to be creative when you can't rely on heavy weapons and thick armor. The Kreth pilots were good. Probably veterans, but you outthought them. They were following standard pursuit tactics. Humans don't really do standard. Hana smiled, and for the first time since Ji-won had found her, the smile reached her eyes. I'm starting to understand that. Over the next few days, as the ship continued toward Alvar Prime, Hana spent more time with the crew. She would sit in the common area and talk with Yunji about medicine, learning how human doctors approached problems differently than Alvaran physicians. She would watch Minho work on the navigation systems, fascinated by the human methods of calculating jump coordinates. But most often, she would sit with Ji-won on the bridge, asking him about Earth and humanity. Why did you leave the military? She asked him one day. Ji-won was quiet for a moment, staring at the stars. I joined because I wanted to protect people. But in the military, you don't always get to choose who you protect or how you do it. You follow orders, even when those orders don't make sense. Even when they go against everything you believe in. So you left to make your own choices. I left to help people on my terms. To go where I'm needed and do what I think is right, without waiting for orders or approval. Hana nodded slowly. We're not so different, you and I. I've spent my life following protocols that sometimes seem pointless. I've watched my people turn away species that need help because they don't meet our standards or follow our rules. I wanted to change that. That's why I was on that convoy. I was trying to build new relationships with younger species to show that the Alvaran Empire could be more than just a proud, ancient civilization looking down on everyone else. And now? Now I've learned that sometimes the species we look down on are the ones we should be learning from. On the 8th day, they encountered their second problem. Another Kreth ship, this one a larger warship, appeared on their sensors. It was between them and Alvaran space, and there was no way to go around it without adding days to their journey. We could wait, Minho suggested. Let it pass. But Yunji shook her head. Hana's condition is getting worse again. The radiation damage is fighting back. She needs real medical care soon, or all my work will be for nothing. Ji-won looked at the sensor display, thinking. The Kreth warship was powerful, but it was also slow, and it probably wasn't expecting a small human salvage ship to try anything bold. We're going through, he decided. That's suicide, Minho said. No, that's the last thing they'll expect. They'll be watching for ships trying to sneak around. They won't expect someone to head straight at them. Ji-won plotted a course that would take them directly toward the Kreth warship, as if they were going to ram it. He pushed the engines to maximum power, making the wandering star as visible as possible. The Kreth ship noticed them immediately and began moving to intercept. But Ji-won waited until they were almost in weapons range, then suddenly cut all power and let momentum carry them forward. To the Kreth sensors, it would look like the small ship had suffered engine failure. The Kreth warship slowed, probably planning to capture the disabled vessel, but just as they came alongside, Ji-won rerouted all power to the engines and blasted away at an angle the Kreth ship couldn't follow quickly. By the time the Kreth realized they'd been tricked, the wandering star was already jumping to faster-than-light speed, racing toward the safety of Alvaran space. Hana laughed with delight and relief. You really don't do any. The queen lost her daughter to battle. Then a human brought her home. The message reached Queen Mirai while she was in a council meeting, pretending to care about trade disputes that meant nothing to her anymore. An aide rushed in, breaking every rule of protocol, and whispered in her ear. Mirai stood so quickly that her chair fell backward. What did you say? Your Majesty, Princess Hana is alive. She's on her way here now. The queen's legs went weak. She grabbed the table for support, tears streaming down her face. Around her, council members rose in shock and confusion, but Mirai barely noticed them. She was already moving toward the door, toward the communications center, needing to hear her daughter's voice with her own ears. When the connection was established, Mirai could barely speak through her tears. "Hana, is it truly you?" "It's me, Mother. I'm coming home." The sound of her daughter's voice, weak but alive, broke something inside Mirai. She had been holding herself together for weeks, being strong for her people, maintaining the dignity expected of a queen. Now all of that crumbled. She was just a mother who had thought she lost her child and had been given a miracle. How? We searched everywhere. We found the wreckage. We thought a human found me. His name is Ji-won. He and his crew saved my life and brought me home. A human? Mirai was confused. Humans rarely came to this part of the galaxy, and their ships were considered small and outdated by Alvaran standards. "I'll explain everything when I arrive. But Mother, this human risked everything to help me. He expects no payment, no reward. He did it simply because I needed help." Mirai absorbed this information, still trying to process the fact that her daughter was alive. "Then he will be honored as a hero of the Empire. Whatever he wants, it is his. I don't think he wants anything except to know I made it home safely." Within hours, news of Princess Hana's survival spread across the Alvaran Empire. Citizens who had been mourning suddenly celebrated. The silver mourning cloths came down, replaced by banners of joy. People gathered in the streets, singing and crying and thanking the gods for this miracle. In the palace, preparations began for the princess's arrival. The royal landing platform was cleaned and decorated. The medical staff prepared the finest treatment rooms, and Queen Mirai stood at the window watching the sky and waiting. The Wandering Star approached Alvar Prime, surrounded by 6 patrol ships. Ji-won had never seen anything like the Alvaran homeworld. The planet gleamed like a jewel, its surface covered in gleaming cities and vast parks. 3 massive space stations orbited the world, each one larger than anything humanity had built. "They're guiding us to the royal palace," Minho said, his voice filled with awe. "We're actually going to land at the palace." Yoonji checked on Hana one last time. The princess was weak but presentable, dressed in a clean uniform that the Alvaran patrol ships had sent over. "You ready for this?" Hana nodded. "I've been dreaming of this moment for weeks, but I'm also nervous. My people will want to know everything that happened. They'll want to know about all of you. Just tell them the truth," Yoonji said with a smile. The Wandering Star descended through the atmosphere, following the patrol ships to a massive landing platform on top of the royal palace. As they approached, Ji-won could see thousands of people gathered around the platform, held back by security forces but all straining to catch a glimpse of their returned princess. The ship settled onto the platform with a gentle thump. Ji-won stood and offered his hand to Hana. "Welcome home, Princess." Hana took his hand and smiled. "Thank you, Captain, for everything." The boarding ramp lowered and Hana appeared at the top. The crowd erupted in cheers so loud they could be heard inside the ship. But Hana's eyes were focused on one person, her mother, who was running toward the ship, all dignity forgotten. Ji-won helped Hana down the ramp, supporting her weak frame. Halfway down, Queen Mirai reached them and pulled her daughter into a fierce embrace. Both women were crying, holding each other as if they would never let go. The crowd's cheers grew even louder. This was a moment their people would remember for generations. Finally, Mirai pulled back and looked at her daughter's face, touching her cheeks as if to confirm she was real. Then she turned to Ji-won and her expression showed a depth of gratitude that needed no words. "You brought my daughter home," Mirai said, her voice thick with emotion. Ji-won bowed respectfully. "She's a brave woman, Your Majesty. She survived because she refused to give up. But she's here because you refused to leave her behind." Mirai turned to address the crowd, her voice amplified by technology so everyone could hear. "This human and his crew accomplished what our entire military could not. They found my daughter in the vastness of space, kept her alive, and brought her home through dangerous territory. They are heroes of the Alvaran Empire." The crowd cheered again. Yoonji and Minho had come down the ramp and stood beside Ji-won, looking overwhelmed by the reception. Over the next few days, Ji-won and his crew were treated as honored guests in the palace. They were given luxurious rooms, fine food, and anything they requested. Doctors took over Hana's care, using advanced Alvaran medicine to accelerate her healing. Within 2 days, she was strong enough to walk the palace halls without assistance, but not everyone was happy about the situation. In the halls of power, some members of the Alvaran court whispered their concerns. High Chancellor Doyon, a powerful noble who had served in the government for 40 years, called a private meeting with several other influential officials. They gathered in a secure room where their words could not be overheard. "This is embarrassing," Doyon said, his voice sharp. "A primitive human succeeds where our military fails. What does that say about us?" "It says we underestimated the situation," replied Admiral Hyunwoo, who had been invited to the meeting. "We assumed the princess was dead. We stopped searching too soon. Exactly my point. We look weak. We look incompetent. And now the Queen treats these humans like heroes, elevating them above our own people." Another noble, a woman named Sora, who controlled much of the Empire's merchant fleet, nodded in agreement. The Queen's emotional response is understandable, but she should not let gratitude cloud her judgment. "These humans could be dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Hyunwoo asked. "They saved the princess. They asked for nothing in return. That's what makes them dangerous," Doyon replied. "No one does something for nothing. They must want something. They're probably planning to use their position to gain advantages for humanity. Trade deals, territory rights, military alliances. Or," Hyunwoo said carefully, "they're simply good people who help others." Doyon waved his hand dismissively. "There's no such thing. Everyone has an angle." The meeting continued with the nobles discussing how to minimize the humans' influence and restore the proper order of things. They decided to watch the humans carefully, looking for any sign of ulterior motives. Meanwhile, Jiwon was having a very different conversation with Queen Mirai in her private study. The Queen had invited him to discuss his reward. The room was beautiful, filled with artifacts from across the Empire's long history. Mirai sat in a comfortable chair and gestured for Jiwon to sit across from her. "You saved my daughter's life," Mirai began. "There is no way to truly repay such a debt, but I want to offer you something. Land, titles, wealth, name it and it's yours." Jiwon shook his head gently. "Your Majesty, I appreciate the offer, but I don't need a reward. Everyone needs something. I need to know that Hana is safe and healthy. That's all." Mirai studied him for a long moment. "You truly mean that, don't you? You expect nothing in return?" "I did what anyone should do. Someone needed help. So I helped. But most people wouldn't. Most species wouldn't. We Alvaran have become so focused on protocol and benefit that we've forgotten simple kindness." Mirai paused, then continued. "My daughter told me about your journey together. How you fought off Kreth ships. How you risked your life repeatedly. She said you never hesitated, never complained, never asked what you would gain. Your daughter is special," Jiwon said. "She cared about others even while she was fighting for her own life. She told me about her work trying to build bridges with younger species. That's important work. Work that many in my government oppose. They think we should maintain our distance, keep our superiority. With respect, Your Majesty, superiority doesn't mean much when you lose your humanity in the process." Mirai smiled. "Interesting choice of words considering you're human." Jiwon smiled back. "You know what I mean? I do. And you're right." Mirai stood and walked to the window. "My people have become arrogant. We've forgotten what it means to simply help someone because they need help. You've reminded us of something important." That night there was a grand celebration in the palace. Thousands of nobles, officials, and important citizens gathered to honor the return of Princess Hana. The princess herself appeared, looking healthy and radiant in formal robes. Jiwon, Yoonji, and Minho were given places of honor at the main table. They felt uncomfortable with all the attention, but they endured it gracefully. During the feast, Hana stood to give a speech. The crowd fell silent. "I want to thank everyone for their concern in The Queen lost her daughter to battle. Then a human brought her home. Queen Mirai insisted that Jiwon and his crew stay on Alvar Prime for at least another week. She wanted to properly honor them. And she also wanted Jiwon to share his knowledge with the Alvaran military about human tactics and thinking. Admiral Hyunwoo was particularly interested in understanding how a small, poorly armed ship had escaped Kreth warships that should have destroyed it easily. Jiwon spent several days meeting with Alvaran military officers, explaining his approach to combat and survival. The officers listened with a mixture of fascination and discomfort. Human tactics seemed chaotic to them, relying on instinct and improvisation rather than careful planning and proven strategies. You just make it up as you go? One young officer asked, clearly confused. Not exactly, Jiwon explained. I plan as much as I can, but I also know that no plan survives contact with reality. So I stay flexible, I adapt, and I trust my instincts. But without proper protocols, how do you ensure consistent results? I don't. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. But staying rigid gets you killed when the situation changes. The officers struggled to understand this mindset. Their entire culture was built on tradition, rules, and proven methods. The idea of abandoning those in favor of moment-to-moment decisions felt wrong to them. But Admiral Hyunwoo saw value in what Jiwon was teaching. Our military has grown predictable, he admitted during a private conversation. We follow the same tactics we've used for centuries. Maybe that's why we failed to find the princess. We searched where we expected her to be, following standard search patterns. We didn't think outside those patterns. During this time, Princess Hana continued to recover. The Alvaran doctors were amazed by how well Yoonji's improvised treatments had worked. They studied her methods carefully, learning how humans approached medical problems with creativity rather than rigid protocols. Hana spent hours with her mother, telling her everything about the attack, her time in the escape pod and her rescue, but mostly she talked about what she had learned from the humans. They see problems differently than we do, Hana explained. Where we see obstacles that require careful planning and proper procedures, they see challenges to overcome with whatever tools they have available. They're adaptable in ways we've forgotten how to be. Mirai listened carefully. She had been thinking along similar lines since her daughter's return. Do you think our empire has become too rigid? I think we've confused tradition with wisdom. We follow rules because they're old, not because they still make sense, and we've become arrogant, assuming our way is the only way. Dangerous thinking for a princess, Mirai said with a slight smile. Maybe, but it's true. One evening, Jiwon was walking through the palace gardens with Hana. She was showing him the famous crystal flowers that grew only on Alvar Prime, plants that sparkled like diamonds in the moonlight. I've been thinking about what comes next, Hana said. After you leave. What do you mean? I want to continue my work building relationships with other species, but I want to do it differently now. I don't want to approach others from a position of superiority. I want real partnerships, real friendships. That's going to upset people like Doyen. I know, but I can't keep pretending that our old ways are working. They're not. She paused by a particularly beautiful cluster of crystal flowers. You changed something in me, Jiwon. You showed me that compassion and courage matter more than power and protocol. You already knew that. You just needed a reminder. Before Hana could respond, they heard shouting from inside the palace. Jiwon's instincts immediately went on alert. Something was wrong. They ran back inside and found guards rushing through the corridors. One of them saw the princess and quickly bowed. Your Highness, please return to your chambers immediately. There's been a security breach. What kind of breach? Hana demanded. We're not sure yet. Please, you must go to safety. But Jiwon had a bad feeling. What room are they focusing on? The guard hesitated, then said, The princess's bedroom, sir. Jiwon's blood went cold. Someone's trying to kill her. He grabbed Hana's arm and pulled her in the opposite direction from her chambers. We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere unexpected? What are you talking about? Think about it. You come back from the dead, you start talking about changing the empire, and suddenly there's a breach focused on your room. That's not a coincidence. They made their way to the Wandering Star, which was still docked on the landing platform. The ship was Jiwon's territory, and he knew every inch of it. If someone came after Hana there, he could defend her. As they approached the ship, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was tall and covered in dark armor, clearly not Alvaran. The figure moved with the deadly grace of a trained killer, a Kreth assassin. Get behind me, Jiwon said to Hana, positioning himself between her and the threat. The Kreth didn't speak. It simply drew two curved blades and advanced. Jiwon had no weapon, but he had his training and his experience. When the Kreth struck, Jiwon dodged to the side and grabbed a piece of metal debris from the landing platform. The fight was brutal. The Kreth was skilled and strong, its blades whistling through the air with deadly precision, but Jiwon was fighting to protect someone he cared about, and that gave him an edge the assassin didn't expect. He used the metal piece to block and parry, turning the Kreth's own momentum against it. When the assassin overextended on a strike, G1 swept its legs and sent it crashing to the ground. Before it could recover, he brought the metal down hard on its head. The Kreth stopped moving. Palace guards arrived moments later, weapons drawn. They found G1 standing over the unconscious assassin, breathing hard, with Princess Hana safe behind him. Queen Mirai arrived soon after, her face pale with shock. An assassin in the palace? How is that possible? Someone let it in, G1 said. Someone with access to security systems and schedules. Someone who knew where Hana would be. Mirai looked at her daughter, then at G1. You saved her life again. We need to find out who's behind this, Hana said. This wasn't just the Kreth acting alone. Someone in our government hired them. The investigation began immediately. The Kreth assassin was interrogated, and under pressure, it revealed that it had been hired by someone within the Alvaran government. The assassin had been given detailed information about palace security, the princess's schedule, and the best time to strike. Admiral Hyunwoo led the investigation personally. He reviewed communication logs, financial records, and security footage. What he found shocked him. High Chancellor Doyen had been secretly communicating with the Kreth for months. He had been selling them information about Alvaran military movements, convoy routes, and defensive positions. The attack on Princess Hana's original convoy had been his doing. He had leaked the route to the Kreth, expecting them to kill everyone and leave no evidence. But Hana had survived. And when she returned, threatening to change the Empire's policies and reduce Doyen's power, he had tried to finish the job. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showed large payments from Kreth accounts to Doyen's private holdings. Communications showed him coordinating with Kreth leaders. And several other officials were implicated in the conspiracy, all of them afraid of losing power if the Empire changed. Queen Mirai called an emergency session of the Royal Council. The Great Hall was filled with nobles and officials, all whispering nervously about what was happening. Mirai stood before them, her voice strong and clear. We have discovered a conspiracy at the heart of our government. High Chancellor Doyen and several others have been working with the Kreth, selling our secrets and endangering our people for personal gain. Shocked gasps echoed through the hall. Doyen leaked my daughter's convoy route to the Kreth, hoping they would kill her. When she survived and returned home, he hired an assassin to finish the job. All because he feared the changes she represents. Doyen was brought into the hall in restraints. His face was defiant. I did what was necessary to protect our empire from weakness. The princess's ideas would have destroyed everything we've built. No, Mirai said firmly. Your actions destroyed your honor and betrayed your people. You put personal power above the lives of those you swore to protect. She turned to address the entire assembly. This conspiracy happened because we became complacent. We assumed our traditions and our power made us safe. We stopped questioning, stopped adapting, stopped growing, and corrupt individuals took advantage of that complacency. Hana stepped forward to stand beside her mother. A human showed us what we had forgotten. Captain G1 didn't save me because of tradition or protocol. He saved me because it was right. He risked his life not for payment or position, but because someone needed help. That kind of courage and compassion should be at the heart of our empire, not buried beneath layers of bureaucracy and political games. The assembly was silent, processing these words. We are hereby dissolving the position of High Chancellor, Mirai announced. The power concentrated in that office created the opportunity for corruption. We will restructure our government to be more transparent, more accountable, and we will begin forming genuine alliances with other species, including humanity, based on mutual respect rather than assumed superiority. Over the next few days, the Empire underwent rapid changes.